Okay, so welcome back. This is time for our last keynote on stage 2 of Data Center Live London. And we're talking about sustainable aviation, sustainable innovation in data centers. Our guest here is Susanna Kass, a data center advisor, head of sustainability at InfraPrime. So hi, Susanna. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Fantastic. I'll leave you the floor.
Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depends where you dial in today. Again, thank you for Data Center Live London to be hosting this fantastic platform. So without further ado, I would like to focus today on the topic which is very passionate to me, which is the SDG impact, focusing on sustainable innovation. What does that mean in terms of when we achieve what we are trying to do in the pledges that we can go towards zero carbon haven for both people, planet, profit, and our global growth. My objective for this session today is to hope to inspire you to connect, to collaborate, not to work on a problem by yourself, but really share the journey that you are taking in sustainability towards a carbon-free future for the social benefits for our people. Think 50 years from now. Not just 2025 or 2030 when you reach your goal. Think the pathway that you're going to pave for the future generation to walk on. Think about our planet in 50 years from now, that it should be better than what it is today. And how do we also scale the growth in our Earth life with profit? That is extremely important as an instrument to continue to propel our success. So I'm going to focus more about taking action for data center by leveraging the 30 plus years experience I have in this data center industry and concurrently working in the clean energy industry for over 15 years. So one of the first questions, of course, I'm going to go focus on is the current trend. Is ChatGPT or generative AI is going to get us faster there? How does that actually going to play a role in accelerated data center net zero waste? So I'm going to skip the part regarding my background in terms of working in data center and also working in AI. You can certainly connect with me in LinkedIn, and my profile is fairly simple and transparent. I am extremely passionate beyond sustainability results inside the fence of the data center that I've been operating for over 32 years and working with hyperscaler as a COO for eBay International, as a general manager for HP for Asia Pacific Data Center Operation, as a head of innovation for Nestera Energy, and also as the EVP and the Worldwide Data Center Business Operation at Sun Microsystems. And when I joined, it was the IT industry, and it wasn't even called a data center, but we have been working on computation. So this is extremely important for us to actually realize that computation is extremely important in the world of our industry as we move towards digital transformation. So hence, AI is here to stay. The chart may be a little bit small for you, but I'm glad to actually share you the report that I have put this together on all the different elements relating to how generative AI has gone from 1 million queries in 6 weeks to 2 weeks, and it's actually 10 minutes. So it is here to stay in terms of how a lot of the computation, the last generation set is going to help us to get there. There's definitely room for improvement, however, in terms of optimizing each of these queries of how we actually use compute resources. And I've definitely shared the feedback with each of the company. But this is just an example, just to share with you for each query, how much computation it takes, what is the carbon intensity, and what might it takes to actually continue to actually improve it. Because the usage of this generative AI and query is not going to go away. So we all need to get comfortable with the uncomfortableness in our life. And this is actually here to stay and would actually transform you and also disrupt one of my favorite law that I believe in computer science, and AI will disrupt the Moore's law. Let's take a look at another trend, which I think is also very important. In spite of the geopolitical uncertainty, in spite of the market uncertainty and many of the tech layoff as I sit in the Silicon Valley, the industry has spoken that we have 64.5 gigawatt of clean energy contracted just in the last year. For some of you who are very interested in knowing who they are, how it's actually being get done, please feel free to connect with me and I can make this resource available. The organizations and the team get together by doing this and disclosing it clearly are very transparent. What is encouraging to me to see or hear or look at the report is data center remains extremely bullish after the lockdown. Data center continue to be the /1 primary driver of leading the renewable energy procurement and transitioning into clean energy for 24/7, 365, which I will share with you in the following illustration. But what I'd like to make a note of is the following. You may not need to be the first, but you can continue to actually lead the way. And hence, AWS wasn't the first to actually join the journey, but they clearly, the commitment is currently the first, along with the other pioneers such as Google, Microsoft, Meta, who are the early pioneer, and Apple in terms of engaging and embracing clean energy in the carbon neutrality pledge. Even some of them are the carbon negative pledge, and they all have moved up the agenda to be 2025 achievement, which is extremely inspiring, and the pace is actually picking up. So blending it with, I'm going to try to advance the next slide. Sorry about this. AI plays a very important role in terms of actually how we optimize energy usage in terms of renewable energy. As we all know that renewable energy are intermittent. So hence, there's quite a bit of computation and optimization that generative AI and large volume data set can actually help us to predict what the scenario is going to be. So clean energy transition and AI genuinely goes hand in hand to support each other. I wrote a white paper 9 years ago talking about the one word that can summarize the data center of my career. And that one word still remained the same: resilience, which is different than reliability. Resilience is be able to predict, analyze, adapt any external circumstances or internal factors they may cause you to deviate from your target goal, which is uptime. And we measure it with a bunch of nines, or think about it, just a few seconds per annum. We are only allowed to actually be down a few seconds so we can all work hard 24/7 to enable you have the quality of digital life. I felt that was very important, but it was essential but insufficient in Susanna's mind. Hence, I created this white paper with one of my co-founders, Dr. Alberto Ravani. And we all start talking about energy usage beyond just power, as we all are familiar with power usage effectiveness. There's a lot more resources that we use when we build and design and operate data center. And we need to be encompassing in thinking about those resource usage. In addition to that, I just felt that intensity is also important. So I created an index and called Intensity Index to take a look at what does that mean when we operate a data center? What does that mean when we build a data center? We all should be start thinking about not just what we use, but all the people that actually helped us, all the people that we stand on their shoulder to enable us to who we are today to actually build a data center. So this white paper has been around for 9 years. In the last 7 years, I created the second diagram, which is the life cycle. we have to look at it from a life cycle perspective, from a sustainability to create and deliver a climate positive impact. So I mapped one of the beautiful blueprint that I look at, which is the UN SDG goal as a data center advisor for the UN SDG program, and starting to take action. The circular economy for the data center is very encompassing. So you're not thinking about, we're not just operating inside the fence of 24/7, but when we start thinking about how we do the design, where we site our data center, whether we owned it or we actually going to contract in a third-party colo, how we actually going to build it, what are the techniques we actually going to do in our operating guideline to operate, to maintain uptime? What do we do when we actually do this all over again from a scaling perspective, either for growth or decommission? There's definitely resources that we interact with the environment in terms of the material, how it's actually being manufactured, what are the energy that is actually being used by our supplier, and the materials that's going to be transported to us, and the waste that we potentially create in a data center, such as the heat or the electronics. What are some of the technique in the circular economy that we can actually embrace? To fast forward this, the EU 27 Environmental Directive put it all together, that we now need to actually disclose about how we're actually going to look at the resource usage and the intensity. So I felt that this is like bringing it all together from 9 years ago, 7 years ago to what it is actually current, and it still support the UN SDG goal. So I thank all the people ahead of me and the pioneer in the industry to be doing what they do every day. And I just want to kind of bring it all together. They're interrelated. And it is the intersectionality that we need to focus on. So let's take a look at this diagram that I actually helped create. I leverage again the UN SDG goal, specifically the climate action one, the double infinity circle that I created, a circular data center, and I try to bring it together. Many of us are familiar with a data center that is now powered by renewable energy, be it wind, solar, and some of you are lucky enough in the Nordics, have the hydro. And many of us are actually now getting comfortable about having nuclear energy to be also in the energy mix. We complemented the resource generation with energy storage to enable us to actually have a 24/7 matching, so we can actually compute where there's green signals. In addition to actually having the very important fiber network to actually have the connectivity, and don't forget about this conversation is actually NEMO is listening to it because it actually goes through the undersea cable, because I'm in the Bay Area and many of you folks are actually in UK. We also need to start thinking about one of the aspects of it, which is the gas network. Currently now, most of you may be familiar with the natural gas, but I challenge you to actually start thinking about hydrogen and renewable natural gas. Combined with technologies such as fuel cell, you can actually have in a boundary renewable energy or clean energy mix that actually can supplement it with the data storage. So let me break it down for you in detail. Start on net zero data center, focusing on the boundary, which is something that I have done in my entire career. We only focus on the boundary to be able to measure our uptime, to measure our metrics, and to measure what is the user's consumption on the intensity index. So we can actually accomplish the 24/7. And I borrowed this diagram from one of our major hyperscaler in terms of looking at, or in terms of helping to help you understand how they basically look at to achieve the sustainability in terms of 24/7 carbon-free energy. Extremely important, because how your application is going to compute is basically based on when they're going to get the green signal, because we have the concept of availability zone. So we can actually compute when we actually get the green signal to be able to achieve the 24/7. Not all applications need to be computed at that moment. Unlike some query that need to be happen real time, but many of other computer applications, such as a maintenance update, can be scheduled. Then let's take a look at the second part. Susanna's belief is same thing. Working inside a fence is essential, but insufficient. In order for us one day, do not need to have a sustainability conference just to talk about sustainability. We need to accelerate greening the grid. Just think about it for a moment. When the grid is 24/7 green, why do I need to worry about inside my fence, inside my boundary to be able to do 24/7? Isn't that a good goal? So greening the grid, in my opinion, is the next boundary and the next area of innovation that we can all collaborate to work on. We need to start collaborating with the utility. We need to start collaborating with the grid, enabling the grid to be able to scale. Perhaps they are the one who actually need to own the energy storage. Perhaps they are the one who actually own the hydrogen network. I certainly not going to store the capacity of the hydrogen that I need for my hyperscale data center behind my fence because of safety reason. And at the same time, it's probably more efficient to basically use the piping and the infrastructure outside my fence, which is in the boundary. So this is actually the next growth that I fundamentally believe we should all take a look at. Next one. Why do we do what we do? It's because of our community. It's because of our customer. It's because of you. You are actually the customer. You are also the builder. You are also the inventor. And you are also the beneficiary. But not about you today. It's about the you, the future you, 50 years from now. So when we start thinking about the materials and the resources that we consume and the intensity of the index that we actually going to emit, thereby new innovation comes in, and I'm working on this project that basically going to take the heat reuse and provide free district heating and cooling. And by adjusting the temperature in one of the hospital applications, we can absolutely do sterilization and refrigeration because the heat come out from a data center by itself is a little bit low grade. And being data center, we like to control things. So hence, why wouldn't we control the temperature? And all without using any water, because the way that actually when they transmit the heat is actually using CO2, which we're trying to decarbonize as a thermal carrier. So by bringing it all together, it just makes common sense that we tied in the work and the investment we did inside the fence, greening the grid on the infrastructure, leveraging what is existing, and be able to provide the social benefits in the community where most of the actually future edge data center is going to reside. Let's talk about scope 3. It is not a scary beast. It's actually very simple. If you have a good way to actually identify where your supplier is going to be and who they are and who have been you buying from and what your company actually have been operating in terms of the scope 3 emission, you have a very good way to be able to work on that. So one of the projects I'm actually working on is I got access and with many of the a few of the partners that I work with, over 11.2 gigawatt of renewable clean energy just in Asia. And why this is extremely important to focus on Southeast Asia, because if you take a look at the supply chain, majority of the materials that needed for data center comes from that part of the region. So we can actually help to decarbonize our scope 3 by working responsibly with the supply chain and start thinking about how we can actually map that. So one of the key things we need to start thinking about when we do the ESG reporting to bring it all together is to incorporate the supplier responsibility. The code of conduct is actually essential, but again, insufficient. What we need to start thinking about is some of the load that we may not have inside our fence that can sit in a boundary. Might be some net zero colo that actually we can put our data in. There are many data center that is actually built out as a colo facility. And I definitely know a few of them have been focused on net zero. So AQ Compute is one example of it, that they have been focusing on net zero before the data center business has started. So I would take a look around, start having this conversation, because what you put in to these net zero colo, your scope 3 is now becoming the scope 1 and 2, and they can generate a report for you, and this is all interrelated. So to summarize, the net zero data center for our people and our planet focus on zero carbon, zero emission. Try to start thinking about your design that you actually don't need to use any water. If nothing else, if you actually use hydrogen, the byproduct is creating water for your data center. We can start thinking about stopping the use of zero dirty fuel, such as diesel. And Microsoft has made significant announcement that they have a plan to get rid of all the diesel use for the backup. Zero waste is a key goal that we need to drive. And I definitely know that hyperscalers such as Google and many other ones have been taking active stand in actually doing reuse and also recycling the electronic waste. So they are leaving the linear economy and shifting over to the circular economy. These are all the steps that you can take to take action. More importantly, what is very encouraging for me to see is just in the last month or so, hyperscalers such as Microsoft, Google, Meta, Apple, and AWS are all having great conversation to take a look at what might be the next frontier that we can build data center with zero embodied carbon, and also the positive water pledge that AWS have made. Some of the specific things that I also like as an inventor is to continue to focus on the design. Once we actually work on the design, we can define clean energy standards and interfaces, and we can come up with reference architecture. That's why we can scale quickly. And one of the key things what we actually do is thinking about how do we actually design for disassembly before we build in the first place. So when we start doing decommissioning or we start doing retrofitting or reconfiguration, we will be able to actually reuse many of the materials that we have used in the first life. And I sum it all up in one regard as a computer scientist is a software-defined network. So why not we create a digital material passport to be able to track all the materials throughout the entire life cycle of where they actually going to be, how it is being used, and what might be the material intensity index. So therefore, when it comes time to do the reporting, this is not going to be a fire drill for your company because the data and the data architecture is already available. So I hope today this is very helpful to give you a thought of thought on what I've been thinking about. My success has been built on many people that give me a chance that I can pioneer experiments, and I make tremendous amount of mistakes throughout the journey, but I learn from it. So we have been collaborating in terms of focusing on what is the risk mitigation of our environment, what are some of the key things that we can help each other to shift things around so we can actually minimize the impact of the geopolitical issues. And most of all, everything that we basically do should not be focusing our own boundary. Start thinking about what the you going to be, who's going to benefit out there, which is the motivation and the primary reason why we do what we do in the first place, be able to make positive impact for others, positive impacts for the planet, and more importantly, very important, every decision that we make and design has to be a positive, profitable growth, because that is the instrument that we use to continue to service our society. And being transparent of the disclosure extremely important, not because of compliance reason, but it's because it's just the right thing to do. So one of the shift for the data center as you in the EU 27 is to be prepared that many of the disclosure in ESG and sustainability is going to become at the individual company level, not at the group level. And it's actually shifting to be more mandatory instead of voluntary. So as a graduate management board member at Stanford University, leading impact analysis and reporting and being an energy fellow for over a decade now, we are now prepared to walk through these reporting issues and data architecture with you. So please connect, please engage, and we can all go farther together if we collaborate. And one of the most important things I have learned in working in a research institution is the following. The sustainability literacy is like learning a new language. It sometimes gets a little bit harder as we all get old. However, it is second nature to the young talent in terms of the sustainability in the literacy. They eat, breathe, and think about it all the time because they need to be around, and they will be around 50 years from now. So I encourage you to embrace your journey with a young talent. You can definitely teach them all the skills that you have, but be surprised if you have an open mind. What are the wonderful ideas that they will have in terms of bringing you to start thinking about sustainability in a whole different way? Please have a woman on your staff, have a woman in your team, and also embrace a young talent. These are all some very important UN SDG goal. So I hope this is actually very helpful for you. What does 2023 hold for Susanna? Capstone projects. Capstone projects in data center that can disrupt the status quo, that can give rise to 30 more gigawatt clean energy is my goal. Not just focus on the fence, but also include the boundary to green the grid. It took me about 15 years or so to achieve 3.8 gigawatt of clean energy. I hope just like ChatGPT, I will be growing at exponential speed, that it won't take me that long to do another 30 gigawatt. So I am here for you, to support you, to encourage you, but you are here to also help me to make my goal, because I sincerely would like to be part of the journey that you are in terms of making the grid green. As much as I like to attend sustainability conference, I would like to have one day, we don't need it anymore because we're already living the life. So thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to connecting with you. I look forward to learning from you. And I look forward to engaging with you so we can actually do some projects together. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Susanna. And like she said there, you can connect with her on LinkedIn or even chat to her in the networking section on our app. But no, thank you very much. I have a couple of quick questions as we've got a few minutes here. Is ChatGPT going to accelerate the race to net zero for data centers? And more importantly, is it coming for our jobs?
Yes, it would accelerate the pathway for us to get into the clean, I would say carbon-free economy, Tom. Part of it is I showed the experiment that with the engine that DeepMind had, for example, with Chinchilla, which has nothing to do with ChatGPT, but they have been around for a long time, and I'm very respect the entire team, have done a very good job in actually doing the energy optimization in terms of using renewable energy, giving the intermittency of the renewable energy mix. Like, when do you know that it's going to be available? Because we can analyze the pattern. I don't believe that actually the AI is actually going for our job, but part of it is we don't want those jobs anyway, because they are really mundane, and human is actually not necessarily the most efficient resource to be able to compute those tasks, because we make mistakes. We can't see everything. We only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. But if you start training the learning of these amazing computation power, perhaps some of the jobs should be left to be done by machinery and machine-to-machine computing. And what human does is actually reserve the time to actually make the decision based on some of the computation analysis being done. Leading the role of impact analysis and reporting, I can assure you, I definitely use many of the computation analysis equipment that is available to me. And then we then get together at Stanford, start talking about what might be some of the human decisions and some of the key insights that we felt are important that we can continue to innovate.
Of course, so it's kind of taking away the menial tasks for us. We can focus on the bigger picture, which would be for data centers net zero at the moment. Which do you think that? How are data centers balancing the need for high performance and reliability in collaboration with sustainability goals?
Yes, well, that's definitely trade-off in terms of whether you're going to do a certain bill. So this is why I think it's a life cycle process, and the design process effectively encompassing many of the different elements that you actually just mentioned, Tom. First and foremost, as the market has actually taught us, it is extremely whatever design that we come up with need to be scalable and affordable. So hence, the cost matrix is part of the scaling. It's okay to do something in a prototype that is not tracking the average, but in order for us to be able to scale it worldwide and globally, and actually also scale up and scale out, it is extremely important that we need to embrace technology or processes that can give us the affordability. And now, more importantly, what I really try to impart on folks is not just do the essential, but also do something that will leave and pave the pathway behind. Hence the word sustainability, right? I mean, the word sustainability, if you look it up in a Webster dictionary, is really be able to sustain yourself to grow in the long run. So hence scalability, affordability is extremely important. It actually has nothing to do with renewable energy, but a lot of people actually identify with it, and I think that's okay.
Of course, yeah, I definitely agree that sustainability is kind of a broader term in itself. It's not just about renewable energy. But I'm sure we could talk about this for a long time, but unfortunately, that is the end of our session. Thank you very much for joining us today, Susanna.
Thank you for having me, and have a wonderful day.